all, I just want to introduce you to Chief AI. Chief AI, it does two things. It does drug discovery and it does diagnostics. So we're into the area of what we call precision medicines. In the first instance, what I want to show you is a small video of a Nobel laureate who made a huge impact in medicines, in particular in malaria. So if we can just play that 1 minute video, because this is an important part of our talk. Could you do that, please, for me? Thank you. So this is to Yu. You can read about her experience here in medicine, and she did something phenomenal. She went into the archives of Chinese medicines, books which are written almost 1,000 years old, and research done thereof. And what she found was this amazing piece of information. It was a drug from a plant called wormwood, and she extracted artemisinin in a cold press manner. And this basically was one of the most potent drugs for malaria. So my point of showing this is, this is a huge killer of people, malaria, and it often kills a lot of the poorest people in the world. And the key aspect of why we're showing this video is really the fact that the answer's already there. In history is just try to finding out the purpose of these drugs. So with that, I'm going to talk to you really and go through a presentation, which I'm going to share my slides with you right now. So my talk is about drug discovery using knowledge, human existing knowledge using AI. Now, the global spending on medicines is increasing every year on year. In 2020, it's about 1.4 trillion. But the problems here is that there are no real new medicines coming out. Most of these medicines are actually old drugs, and they're repurposed for other indications. And this is a sort of diagram to show that the pharma model is broken. There is no new blockbusters coming out, and the cost of drug development is rising. So how do we find drugs for various therapies, from CNS all the way to respiratory and other conditions, especially cancers as well? And to find these nuggets of gold, how do we do this? I'll be talking a little bit about AI in drug discovery, but these markets are increasing, as you can see in diagnostics and drug discoveries. So what are we doing? Is we're partnering with MDC, Medicine Discovery Catapult, and what we're trying to do here is really look at many of the drugs that are known already. On the left-hand side, you can see what we call the compound drug universe. And throughout all of these, we're looking at off-pathway effects and various other effects. And these can be in diagrams and textual information as well. So this is in journals, publications, web, private databases. And then we're trying to correlate them to proteomics, protein interactions, genomics, and various other networks, and off-target effects as well, which we're interested in. So one drug can be used for something else, like aspirin is used to get rid of your headache, but it can also thin your blood. But more so as an industry, what we're trying to do to see if we can get these in patents as well, to see if these are absolutely new off-pathway effects. So we're also not only interested in one drug, but two drugs, and we can combine those drugs to affect various diseases. But also in patents, what you need to find is new information as well. So we also do what we call experimental screens as well. So what this automation would allow us to do is to hunt for information that we have already in the existing infrastructure of human knowledge, and then to find old drugs with new applications. And these are some of the things that we're doing already. So this is the process. And I'll give you one example. In 2015, there were 212 million cases of malaria and more than 500,000 or thereabouts malaria deaths. Here, this is an experiment in a journal that we submitted to. And it's basically what we had done here is we screened a number of known drugs that we thought would work against malaria. And to cut a long story short, we found other drugs like emetine in this case, which is normally used for the treatment of an amoebal dysentery, which is just as effective, if not more effective, than the drug we spoke about called artemisinin. So again, this is so you need that practical element of drugs as well, not just the theoretical element that we spoke about using AI. And again, we're doing the same thing with drugs. In this case, we're working on Alzheimer's, and Alzheimer's is a huge problem in the West, and there's no drugs for this kind of disease at all. So this is another aspect of what we're looking at, using known drugs and looking at off-pathway effects and whether these can interrupt that disease process, and in this case, aggregation of various proteins in the brain as well. So with that, I'll end and I'll pass on to Waqar to talk about diagnosis, which is important as well, because the marriage of medicines and specific diagnostics is what we call precision-based medicine. So over to Waqar.
Thank you so much, Farid. The range of data that powers Chief AI also lends itself very well to diagnostic models and diagnostic AI services, especially for things such as cancer, and not only diagnosing people accurately using AI models that connect to diagnostic machines such as MRI, CT scan, but also taking it further by harnessing existing data around diseases such as cancer, and then using that data to perform prognostic tests and indicators and treatment optimization for various kinds of cancers such as lung, colon, and breast. So we've got access to a range of data sets from biobanks from around the world, including in Asia. We're also working with MDC to collaborate on harnessing data mutually to build these models. And the data quality that we find is variable, but we make it a high priority to cleanse and then filter that data down to the types of data that can then be harnessed to build AI models that will then diagnose and perform prognostics. And let's have a look at some of the products that we are building. HistoAI is our proprietary histopathology detection AI model that uses breast cancer histopathology images to accurately diagnose and segment a breast cancer sample within a histopathology slide. Pulmon AI is another model that we have built that allows operators or radiologists of scanning machines, such as CT scans, to diagnose lung cancer within a CT scan image. It will also segment the location of the cancer. Head AI is a similar product that we're building to diagnose head and neck cancer using CT scan images fed into the algorithm. And similarly, Mammo AI is another proprietary model that we're building that will use mammogram X-ray images to diagnose and localize tumors within a breast image. Now, here's a very interesting project that we are actually building, the Vitality smartwatch. So this is a wearable device that anybody can wear, be they your average person, be they patients in a hospital, in and out of a hospital setting, whether they're recovering at home. And this smartwatch actually is very interesting because it links to a Bluetooth app that then records temperature, oxygen, and activity levels, and that is then fed through a mobile device to the Chief AI API, which then uses all this data to perform various tests and indicate whether the patient is deteriorating, whether they need further tests, whether they have questionable levels of immunity that then require further testing in a lab setting. That is linked automatically with a lab booking system that will then test you for infections such as COVID if the watch detects that your temperature or your oxygen levels are out of the normal range. And this continuous measurement will give the wearer a sense of security that if they are deteriorating or if they are encountering an unknown condition, then help is at hand, and a test can be instantly booked through the booking system and then perform it right away. And finally, we see how the remote monitoring system links up to the entire COVID and immunity infrastructure. So on the one hand, you have wearables feeding your symptoms to the COVID app. On the other hand, the data is fed into the Chief AI clinical integration engine that then studies the entire range of inputs across a geographical region, with the ability to track and trace patients and direct them to appropriate services and monitor their care levels and see what further services or testing they need. And all of this is very neatly integrated within the wearable device and the app that can then direct the patient or would-be patient to the appropriate service. And we take a look at some of the diagnostic machines that are supported. So we're working with a system called BioFab, and this system actually builds a database of assays that can then be fed to various healthcare providers, and the assays can be very quickly accessed on mobile devices, on laptops, and the assays can then power AI models that then make predictions on how a particular patient would fare. And we finally take a look at our founding team, which is myself, Dr. Farid Khan, Dr. Arindam Ghosh, Bilal Chaudhry, Dr. John Overington at the MDC, Matthew, and Dr. Hyujin Yin.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.